Alright, this should be the last video of Chapter 2 Millennium with Jacques Attali. We left off at germs many and how it provides a link between the European continent. So now we're at the last 4 pages. Page 64 through 67. In the 21st century, a fierce struggle for supremacy will take place among cities, nations, even continents. If the 9th market form resembles the preceding 8, there will be a center surrounded by a hinterland and a periphery. The most immediate result is likely to be the continued juxtaposition of 2 contending spheres, the Pacific and the European, with 2 centers, each organized around a pair composed of a political giant and an economic giant, competing at the same time for the interior of each sphere and for the domination of the other sphere. That's interesting. Instead of USA and USSR, the USA has become USSA, which is the dead Soviet bloc, and it's becoming a third world. And Europe and Asia are becoming the new first and second worlds. This evolution will bring great upheavals. Inside each sphere, the competition between the political power and the economic power will bring serious conflicts. So like Washington, D.C. and New York was in the 8th market form. In the 9th one, the same conflict will become more serious. It will be difficult for one to accept the ambitions of the other. At the same time, both will recognize how necessary close links are for each other. Therefore, a separation of power must be decided inside each sphere. In the Pacific and in Europe, the questions must be asked. Who will have the dominant currency? Who will control defense? Where will the principal financial market be located? That's interesting, that division of power to restrain the mad rush for power, something the US Constitution was written with keeping in mind. So in leadership, it's good to have well-defined boundaries between each other's roles. That way there's least conflict. One can imagine the stronger economic power leaving for a time some international political responsibilities to the stronger military power. So this is funny how he's talking about how East Asia is going to be playing America in this new millennium. Because the economy, you cannot have industry without currency without industry. It's one of the mottos he'll talk about later. Today, these responsibilities do not have much importance with respect to the longer-term strength for those who do not have the financial wherewithal to maintain them. So here's the French aristocrat making fun of their old puppets, their old puppies, the American experiment. In reality, the current superpowers will lose control of their respective empires and will gradually become the secondary power in their former realms. So that's funny how China is going to be the big dog in Latin America, and America is going to be the secondary power in their former realms. And that's happening today. And this is written in 1990, obviously, or 89. The United States will try to halt its relative economic decline by cutting military spending in order to reduce its budget deficit. It will gradually continue to reduce its troop strength on its allies' territory. This reduction in arms, even if it is partial. So I just want to remind how after 9/11, America took a lot of help from Europe and their allies. And Bush was always making speeches calling Blair and other European people to help him with troops and stuff. So All of this we saw in the change of the millennium, how military became so important, and budget. This reduction in arms, even if it is partial, will provide the resources for a tremendous economic rebound. Reduction in arms, providing resources for a tremendous economic rebound. Well, we didn't have that. We had Bush and then Obama, and the economy just went bad to worse. Although, I think when Trump came in, the war slowed down. Anyway, we can expect a massive reduction in fixed armaments. Well, we didn't really see that, but anyway, short range. I think some of the things he's saying in this book, just like he hints Japan doing, some of the things he says in this book are basically things he wants done because he's a bankster, after all, instead of things that will be good for the countries, you know. And you'll see that if you know about Agenda 21. In his little statements, you'll read that through. But we can expect a massive reduction. Short-range nuclear weapons will have no reason to exist except for secret regional ambitions, like India and Pakistan, or China. Negotiations on conventional arms reduction will accelerate and will result in a massive removal of foreign troops still stationed on European soil. So yeah, arms negotiations are always hot button issues. There was a lot going on last year too. Sadly, none of this will cause tensions to disappear. Because of the lack of superpower control, territorial disputes, some professor just lost their job over showing Kashmir as part of India instead of part of China and Pakistan. So yeah, lack of superpower control, territorial disputes, economic quarrels, perhaps military battles will be possible, even likely, between some of the countries in each of the two spheres. We must remember that in this century, the Europe composed of separate nations has twice, or in the last century, Europe separate nations has twice been the cause and main theater of action of a world war. So he's just saying there's been two big world wars recently. The frontiers that resulted from the Second World War do not always correspond with cultural or linguistic realities. So the alliances, the frontiers of the Second World War are not really culturally or linguistically sound. No one should forget that one day the Japanese may want to ask the Americans questions about Hiroshima. There was a whole South Park episode about that. Of course, until now, no democracy has ever gone to war against another democracy, and this fact alone may provide the principal hope for the future. And that's how true it is, huh? These democracies are like a big global matriarchy. So obviously they're not going to fight, they're just going to bully each other for power and throw each other's pawns at each other's heads. But this fact alone may provide the principal hope for the future. But here is the main risk. Some nations might decide to stop being democracies in order to wage war. Wow, they might be seeing some new men coming up to fuck these democracies in all their holes. Alright, so it may be that neither the Pacific nor the European sphere will triumph over the other, and that the center of the coming world order will be divided among many regions. So this is another theory of instead of the two-nation hypothesis, there will be a sharing of powers according to the functions they provide. America for culture, currency, and defense. Japan for finance and industry. By the way, Japan is called the yen currency, and China is called the yuan, like the $1 bill. Anyway, Europe for lifestyle and services. Such an outcome is imaginable. Give me a sec, I gotta take a water break. Alright. Such an outcome is imaginable. It could happen for some time as the world hesitates between two rival spheres. But such a division would not endure. So says he. History establishes a clear pattern. There can be no defense without finance, nor currency without industry, nor lifestyle without culture. So that's just stating human nature, that nobody likes sharing power. These psychopaths wanna be the big dog, the last dog standing. We can anticipate then that eventually one metropolis will incorporate all the necessary characteristics of the new market form. But that's the one center, the one ring to take over all the rings. All the necessary characters of the new market form, whose outlines can now be glimpsed and will, for the first time, extend its dominion across entire continents. So he's just talking about the global New World Order. As you know, the title of the book says New World Order. But banks and unions between countries are not the solution, obviously. As we know. That's the way of the plutocrats. But I'm going to continue reading the last page. The struggle for supremacy of the coming world order pales in the light of potential conflicts between the two emerging spheres and an exploited periphery whose inhabitants will be denied an opportunity to participate in the wealth of the North. So this struggle for supremacy will have conflicts between two spheres, a whole lot of conflict, and there's going to be exploited periphery now, and maybe we're part of this exploited periphery. If you notice how Chinese and Indians are taking over, mostly Chinese, are taking over the real estate of Western America, at least. So that means we're going to be the exploited periphery instead of the hinterland of the old center. Two emerging spheres, conflicts, periphery, whose inhabitants will be denied the opportunity to participate in the wealth of the North. And this is when struggle begins for the immense lands of Asia, India and China. Immense lands of Asia. India and China will refuse to fall under the sway of either the Pacific or European sphere. The Middle East is also, as we have seen, a dangerous wild card. The Middle East is also, as we have seen in 1980s, a dangerous wild card. I knew some guy who lived in the Middle East. He was bragging about it. Must have been dangerous. In all these areas, the proliferation of military technology the diversity of arms, the manufacture of chemical and biological weapons, and the ballistic missiles capable of carrying either conventional or chemical warheads make the outbreak of brief but bloody wars possible, perhaps even probable. So yeah, the military tech stuff going on around the world, the biochemical weaponries, and the missiles, chemical weaponry. So wars is possible and probable because that's big money, right? The disappearance of competing ideologies and the generalization of the market economy. Excuse me. The disappearance of the different religion and the birth of this new world order culture of consensus, liberal capitalistic culture of choice and pluralism and yeah, the material society, atheistic. But the disappearance of the ideologies and the generalization of the economy stimulates the similarity of desires. Therefore, violent rivalry for territories and resources may well be the paradoxical result. Lebanons and Kashmirs may multiply. War will occur if there is no one strong enough to prevent it. Without, he's still talking, there has to be a center. Without regional institutions to act as an architecture for peace, we face a future in which spheres of abundance collide in a sea of instability. Alright, so he's tying it right back to his banks and his cultures and his different institutions for the New World Order. So this was the end of chapter 2. The struggle for supremacy. So rape and ultra violence, right? Dictatorships are collapsing. So this is the end of chapter 2. The next one is chapter 3. Wonder what that's going to be. Doesn't look pretty. Is that a dragon in the background? Raining fire? Millennial Losers, chapter 3. The big losers of the next millennium. It looks like he's talking about America. Alright, that's 18 minutes. Page 71, where we get back. Or page 69.